Hey everyone, Brian Schulstad here, Managing Director with Bridgemark Strategies. I have two of my colleagues with me today, Paul Wickert, who is out in Omaha, I believe, and Rich Landy, who's down in sunny Florida. What we wanted to talk about today are the recruiting trends that we've seen over the last year and a half, 2023 and into 2024. And wanted to give both Rich and Paul a chance to introduce themselves real quick.
Well, I'm Rich Landy with Bridgemark Strategies, and Brian, thanks for making that introduction. And of course, we're here with Paul Wickert, one of our other colleagues. Been working with, Bridgemark for about 4 years now as an independent recruiting consulting firm. And as we go through this process, we're just trying to help out, sharing ideas, tips, stories, events that might help financial advisors and their teams as they go through a due diligence process and looking at other firms. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Hey, everybody. Paul Wickert here. I've got 12 years in the industry, 4 at Bridgemark. Prior to that was a wholesaler, and prior even to that was an advisor. And I just love working with advisors. And specifically on this side of the business, it's a big decision. It makes a huge difference in an advisor's future when they choose the right firm. And that's why I love helping them explore, or sometimes they're even committed to making a change. And that's great too. We just help find the best firm for advisors based on what they think they need.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Paul. And now I've been in the industry since 1995. I spent about 6 years as an advisor, another 6 in management. And then since 2007, I've been really helping financial advisors find their next firm, by providing that unbiased advice and guidance, whether you're changing firms or selling your practice. So thanks everyone for joining us, taking the time to watch this video and hear a little bit about the trends that we're seeing. And one of the recent trends that's bubbled back up again, it's sort of what is old is new again, and that's the W-2 space. And Rich has a bit of background there, and so we're going to have Rich touch on that.
Yeah, a little bit of background. Started in 1991 with a firm called Dean Witter, which was absorbed by Morgan Stanley back in 1997. So I've been in the wirehouse my entire career, which is nearly 28 years. But the last 6, I've been in the independent recruiting consulting side. And yeah, what I call the regional brokerage firms, they're not dead, they're alive and they're doing well. It's actually a renaissance for the W-2 side out of the regionals, and we work with the top 5 regionals in this country. And I'm going to just share with you a couple of the reasons why it's coming back. You can keep your W-2, you can keep your benefits at the regional, and yet you still have that small firm cultural feel. We all know A.G. Edwards has been in this business long enough. You always hear about A.G. Edwards and the culture and the feel. Well, that hasn't died. It has come back. Not only that, with your W-2 and your benefits, you can also get opportunities, and some of these firms will allow you to transition over to even the independents, which you'll get to talk about here shortly, Brian. And you have that ownership, real ownership feel. Their transition packages, right, to make that transition rival the wirehouses, which in my personal opinion, the wirehouses, they have some issues, and that's why there's this renaissance happening within the regionals. Some of the other things to note about the regionals, they are growing faster than the wires. Of course, in the independent space has really got the market right now. Regionals, state-of-the-art technology. We hear about technology all the time, but frankly, if you don't look at it, you don't know what you don't know. Gorgeous. Think about the gorgeous office spaces that they provide for you as a W-2 employee that has the benefits. Again, ownership feel, the upfront deals, the back end deals are enormous. One thing I'd like to share with you in the regionals, they typically start out at 40 to 45, maybe even 50% is your payout, depending on where you come in. There is a floor. Many of them will add benefits to that could get you to 55, maybe even 58% payout. And no, you don't have to be $1 million, $5 million, or $10 million producer to get that. Most advisors that might be watching this today would easily fit into that regional feel firm. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about trends in 2024, but this was about the regionals are not dead. They're alive and well. And I think,
Mhm.
Brian, you had a few things you want to touch on as well in this presentation.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Rich. And that W-2 trend, has begun to bleed into the independent space, right? So the independents are seeing that growth and the traction that's occurring, in particular the regionals, and have started to develop their own W-2 channels, right? And these are W-2 channels where you, as the advisor, still own your book of business, right? That's what's unique between there and the wires, perhaps. And then they're allowing you to take down office space. They're going to put the benefits for your, not only you as the advisor, but also for your staff, and really treat you more like that regional firm feel underneath the IBD umbrella. So I know of two of the major IBDs that already had this channel in place, and others are looking into it. Now, then you can take a few more steps, where you gradually are moving more and more towards independence and taking control. And one is called the supported independent channel, where the firm will still take down your office space, right? Provide benefits to your staff, but you are still that 1099 advisor. So a little different feel, but trending more towards being that fully independent. And then you go all the way on the other side of the spectrum, underneath these IBDs, and that would be that RIA only channel, right? Not only, you're not only just restricted like in the past where you had to go to Schwab or Fidelity or the major custodians. Now you can do that with some of the IBDs as well. So it really covers that full spectrum of choice, along with that traditional IBD connection. Now, the challenge that occurs, because a lot of these IBDs are getting very large, is, okay, how do you navigate that space? And that space has become extremely complex. And that's where these large enterprises, or OSJs, come into play to give you some additional resources so you don't get lost in the shuffle. And so I think Paul's going to touch on that for us for a moment.
Yeah, just quick point of clarity. Thanks, Brian. There's lots of terms that you can use that mean the same thing. You'll hear enterprise, you'll hear large enterprise, you'll hear OSJ, super OSJ. Basically, these are just groups of advisors that share different or additional resources above and beyond what the broker-dealer may be offering. And sometimes they'll work together for marketing purposes. Sometimes they have their own brands. There's a lot of different ways they can do it, which is a common theme amongst all of us. Is there's a ton of ways you can do it, which is a great reason to work with a consultant like Brian, Rich, or myself. So these enterprises, there's lots of reasons that you may consider joining one. Typically, you'll find them underneath the umbrella of a large firm. The smaller firms don't fit the enterprise model quite as well because they're already small. And a lot of what these enterprises do is make a large firm feel small. Well, how do they do that? Traditionally, service has been the most forefront thing that they've done to differentiate themselves from just joining the broker dealer directly. So that service could be that they're offering the same services as the broker dealer, but better. It could be something that's totally different than what the broker dealer is offering. And so you get that extra layer of support there. Another thing that some of these enterprises have done is that these, large firms, a lot of times they struggle with service. They struggle with finding your way around and navigating a huge firm. And so the enterprise just helps simplify that experience. It's a great reason to look at enterprise, especially at some of the firms that can be more complicated, that have all the bells and whistles, and that's like a Swiss Army knife. You can really use someone on your side day to day that is helping you just navigate the broker dealer that you're within, and that's what an enterprise can do. Third reason that you may consider an enterprise, some of them have their own technology. So they'll work with the broker dealer, speak to the broker dealer's systems, but they have their own technology to offer. I'm thinking specifically about one I've talked with recently that has their own financial planning software. So there's a lot of technology advantages that can come from an enterprise that decides to go down that route. Fourth, and this is not an exhaustive list, there's a lot of reasons, but I've only got two more here. Fourth is the custodial aspect of it. The broker dealer has a clearing and a custodial side by themselves. Sometimes the enterprise has one additionally outside of that broker-dealer relationship. So you can
Yeah.
gain access to some of the more popular custodians just by choosing to affiliate with an enterprise that has that offering for you. And then lastly, again, not an exhaustive list, but if you use a third-party money manager, a specific one, sometimes these enterprises work so well with the third-party money managers that they bring some significant advantages to the advisors that also work with those managers. Thinking of one of the larger cases, a group of advisors I worked with last year, that was exactly what they ended up doing, was joining an enterprise that had the same third-party money manager that this group of advisors had made a commitment to and wanted to keep. So lots of great reasons to work with an enterprise. Overarching theme is that they make a big firm feel much smaller. And speaking of the trends that have been happening, this is a trend that advisors are choosing. They are going with the enterprises, and there's lots of reasons to consider doing that.
Thanks, Paul. That's a great point there. I think the main trend that we're all touching on is complexity, right? There's so much choice.
Yep.
Right. The good news is you've got a lot of choices. The bad news is you've got a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for you as an advisor who may have moved firms once or twice in your career, but to understand the options that you have available to you and to make sure that you're ultimately finding that firm that has the best feel and fit for you, along with the financial support in making a move. So that's where we come in. We do this every day. We have contracts with 120, 130 different firms. And we also have contracts and deal with a lot of subsets underneath that, right? The large enterprises, the OSJs. I'm trying to think back to the last 5 or 10 groups that I've helped affiliate and find their next firm. I can't think of one that affiliated in a traditional fashion that perhaps 4 or 5 years ago they would have. So I think some final thoughts here, because we could talk for 4 hours, probably 4 days if you let us.
Yeah, I've got one closing thought, and it's about the risk that's involved for any advisor and team really looking to make a transition, and where we come in as professionals and consultants. And hey, maybe you have your own recruiter you're working with, or you're in your network, you could talk to somebody as well. I would encourage it. Our role is really to help identify the what we call the landmines and the potholes in the due diligence process. Because there are so many choices, it is complex. It's very easy for somebody to miss something and really make what could be a very, very bad mistake, whether it's personal or financial or with clients. Our job is to try to identify those landmines. And those landmines, they genuinely blow things up. You can't repair them, you can't fix them. But there's always going to be a pothole, and we all go through those. They're uncomfortable, but we do get out on the other end. So listen, I hope this has helped out a little bit. I'm going to pass it back to Brian or Paul for any last thoughts.
Yeah, my last thought to say is some people think they need to have reached the point of they've decided they're going to make a change before they have talked to us. And that's not the case. Sometimes they just want to see what's out there. And that's a great reason to talk to us too. You don't have to decide that you're going to make a change. You just have to decide that you're curious enough to just look at what's out there. And Brian and Rich and I can help you honestly save a ton of time, especially if you're not decided on making a change and you're just curious. Tap into our knowledge of doing this every single day and help us just make a short list for you of, hey, if you're going to kick the tires, so to speak, consider doing it with these 3 firms. And you may be surprised, especially with the complexities of what's out there. You may be surprised at how good of a fit there is for your next affiliation.
That's a good point, Paul. And look, our job is to understand how you're doing your business right now, and then also what you're trying to accomplish for the next 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And to curate a list of those 100 to 200 different firms that we're familiar with, narrow that down so that you have that curated list of 4 or 5 firms to begin exploring. Now, I always like to point out, there is no obligation to you, when you're working with us to make a move. And also, we're compensated by the firms that you ultimately affiliate with down the road. So this is at no cost to you. So it makes sense to find a guide, help you navigate down that path, reduce that stress, save time, and minimize mistakes. So I hope this information was helpful, and we look forward to connecting with you down the road.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks all.
Thanks.